I'm Professor Steve Rowe. I'm a real paleontologist, and you're watching Real Paleontology. Today, I'm adding a new series. I'm calling it Paleo Bites. Here I'll drill down on topics of interest that grab my attention or answer questions from you, the viewer. And in this first installment, we're running a face-off. Deadliest animals, Australia versus the USA. Basically, how much more likely are you to be killed by an animal in Australia than in the States? And which species rank where? I can pretty much promise that there will be some surprises. Frankly, I've been pretty darn surprised at the results myself. Now, why have I decided to orchestrate this face-off? Well, I've just seen yet another darn YouTube video in which it is claimed that everything in Australia is trying to kill you, and that once you set foot in the land down under, you'll likely return home in a body bag, probably with bits missing. So I just wanted to assess how well grounded in fact such fears are. The reason I've chosen to make a comparison with the USA is simply because Mr. YouTube tells me that you folks from the States are my little channel's single biggest demographic. So, hey, thanks guys. Also, I know the States pretty well, having visited at least 8 times that I can remember, and probably a couple more that I can't. Anyway, again, why are so many people convinced that everything in Australia is trying to kill you? I could point to dozens, if not hundreds of YouTube clips promoting this claim, but I'm just going to use a little excerpt from a song to kick things off.
In Australia, we've got deadly animals aplenty. We've got funnel web spiders who'll murder you and your family. Under every second rock is a redback spider, and they'll kill you just because, I don't know, they're bored or whatever. We've got invisible brown snakes who'll bite you on the foot, and you'll be dead in 7 minutes. Just like that, kaput. We've got the world's deadliest creatures all over the place. We've got magpies who'll steal the eyeballs from your face. But at least we don't have AR-15s. We've got great white sharks who'll ascend from the deep and rip you in half with their razor-sharp teeth. We've got saltwater crocs who'll death roll you to death, and sea snakes who'll gladly snatch your last breath. We've got a blue-ringed octopus, no bigger than this, that just sits around in rock pools waiting to kill kids, and even the platypus, a cute beaver duck thing, has got a spur on its ankle that'll kill you in one sting.
This song goes for quite a long time, and I've got to admit, I find it kind of funny. But how much truth is there to it? I'm going to rank the deadliest animals in both countries by how many people they kill per year, from lowest to highest. I have 3 main sources of data here. For Australia, this was published by the National Coronial Information System in 2017, and for the US, it's 2 peer-reviewed journal articles. This 2018 paper by Jared Forrester and colleagues, and this 2018 paper by Michael Conover. Now, it may have occurred to you that the US population is much higher than Australia's, and our beaches ain't so crowded, so a straight comparison isn't really fair. There are around 12.8 Americans for every Aussie, so I'm going to first give a comparison of average deaths per year based on just the raw numbers, and then I'm going to give a comparison that adjusts for the big difference in populations. Also, because it's a dead tie for some species, I'm going to work my way up from rank 8 to the deadliest at rank 1. Right, off we go. Beginning with the 8th most deadly animal in Australia, we have the box jellyfish, Chironix fleckeri. And what an impressive start from the Australian corner. This particular species of box jellyfish is pretty benign to look at, some might even say beautiful, but it is often touted as the most venomous animal on the planet. However, despite its impressive resume, this little jellyfish is only responsible for killing half an Australian per year. Now, for the US, we have 2 types of critter tying for 8th place, sharks and alligators. Both are responsible for an average of 1 fatality per year. Nonetheless, correcting for population size, Australia's little jellyfish is still deadlier than US sharks and alligators combined, with a rank score of 6-2. Next up for Australia, we have the savage saltwater crocodile, another truly impressive contender. Easily the largest crocodilian in the world, with bone-crunching jaws and a notorious death roll, this beast is thought to be responsible for up to 1,000 fatalities per year worldwide. But in Australia, it's only responsible for about 1.2 deaths per annum. Surprisingly, almost as many Americans are killed by their tiny little alligators every year as Australians are by their mother of all crocodilians. Go figure. The seventh most deadly critters in the USA are in fact snakes and spiders, which kill an average of 6 people per year. But again, adjusting for population size, Australia wins this round with a score of 15-12. We Aussies are off to a good start. We're on to number 6, and yet again, Australia comes out with some particularly hard hitters. We're talking sharks, and Australia is well known for some really big great white sharks. However, on average, sharks only take out 1.6 Australians a year. And what does the US put up by way of competition for 6th most deadly? I can hardly believe I'm saying this. Cows. Some bulls, but mostly cows, kill around 21 Americans per annum, mostly by crushing them. And I'm almost ashamed to say that even after adjusting for population, American cows nudge out our Australian sharks with a score of 21-20. Maybe someone should name a football team after them. Righto, well that was a bit of a blow to my Aussie ego. So let's move right along to 5th place. For Australia, we have another surprise contender, although maybe not as surprising as cows. Causing 1.8 deaths per year in Oz, we have the bee. Whereas in the US, we have an animal close to many people's hearts, dogs. Man's best friend is responsible for 34 deaths yearly in the USA. And it's another win for the States here, with American dogs smashing Australian bees with a corrected score of 34-23. 4th place, and for Australia, we have a tie here. Both kangaroos and snakes are responsible for 2.2 deaths per year. I've got to say, this was a particularly disappointing result for the snakes. Australia has at least 9 of the 10 most venomous snake species in the world. But the simple fact is that many of them live in the vast, unpopulated Australian hinterland, and those that don't are even more afraid of humans than humans are of them. So unless you go rampaging barefooted through the Australian bush, trying to actively stomp on every snake you see, chances that you'll be bitten are very small. Kangaroos, of course, rarely attack unless you're stupid enough to provoke them. And all kangaroo-associated deaths are the result of collisions with vehicles. Coming in at number 4 for the USA, we have bees again. Bees kill 20 Americans every year on average. Anyway, snakes and roos together get an adjusted score of 28, easily topping the American honeybee. This round goes to Australia. Next up for Australia, we have man's best friend, killing 3.3 people per annum. Now, because 2 of the previous positions were tied for America's most deadly, I have to leave this rank unfilled. I'll just note that after adjusting for population size, Australian dogs are a bit more lethal than American ones, with a ranking of 40 compared to 34. This was a little surprising to me, but then again, even though the Australian Kelpie here is not a very big dog, it's certainly one of the smartest. So maybe it's a matter of brains over brawn. So, for 3rd position, shaping up for Australia again, we have Team Cow, responsible for 4.8 deaths per year. And even after allowing for population differences, 3rd place getter for the US is a full body length ahead. Deer are responsible for 446 deaths per year in the US. Deer win by a staggering 446-60 over our Aussie cows after allowing for population size. They do this through motor vehicle collisions as opposed to crushing their prey to death directly as cows do. We're getting to the end of our little journey now with a struggle for 2nd place. And interestingly, for the first time, we have the same species fronting up for both countries. The 2nd deadliest animal in both Australia and the USA is, wait for it, Equus calibus, the domestic horse. Horses are responsible for 10.1 deaths per year in Australia, according to the National Australian Coronial Information System. Now, there's a lot of information available on horses and horse riding in the US, but nowhere is there a national register of horse-related deaths. The closest thing I've been able to find is this estimate provided by a group called Horses Only, and they estimate that there are 710 horse-related deaths per annum in the USA. Now, even adjusted for population differences, this would make American horses far deadlier than their Australian relatives, with a score of 710 relative to 129. And I must say, I'm a bit sceptical of this prediction. But either way, I don't think there can be much doubt that horse-related deaths per year are in the hundreds in the US. So folks, love your horses by all means, but don't forget that that's hundreds of kilos of potentially lethal muscle and bone there. So please, give them the respect that they are due. Now, last but definitely not least, we have the number one deadliest animal. I wonder if you've guessed it. I'm going to give you a couple of hints in case you have not. Again, as with the horse, it's the same species in both countries. Second clue, as with the horse, this species is found on every inhabited continent. No more clues. It is, of course, us. We humans kill way more humans than any other animal. In Australia, in 2022, humans killed 409 other humans. In the USA, in the same year, humans killed 21,594 other humans. After adjusting for population size, the USA wins this one by a factor of more than 4 to 1. Not that I think that this is anything to gloat over from an Australian perspective. In recent years, the homicide rate in Australia has stabilised, while according to the FBI, it's been decreasing in the US. Overall then, what are these numbers telling us? Well, even if we exclude humans and domesticated animals from the equation and just look at the figures for wild animals, after adjusting for population size, the USA wins hands down again, with 520 wild animal related deaths per year compared to a paltry 122 for Australia. So, to my fellow Australians, if you're worried about being killed by a wild animal, my advice to you is stay home. Do not go to the USA, it's bloody dangerous. You're more than 4 times as likely to get killed by a wild animal over there as you are here. And to my American friends, please, I urge you, get your butts down here as fast as possible while you still can. Of course, jokes aside, the real point here is that in either country, the chances of being killed by a wild animal are vanishingly small, and you are way more likely to be killed by a domesticated animal than a wild one. And by far the most dangerous species of all is your own. Now, before we wind up, I'd like to rate a couple of honourable mentions. On the Australian side, I think some people will be surprised that spiders don't rate among our deadliest creatures. And yet, it is a simple fact that Australia's funnel web spider is the most venomous in the world. How can this be? Well, the bottom line is that not a single person has been killed by a funnel web or any other spider down under since 1981, the year that an antivenom was introduced. So, despite the fact that many visitors appear to be terrified of Australian spiders, in reality, you're much more likely to be killed by a spider in the USA than here. I'm also giving an honourable mention for the US, bears. I haven't included bears basically because the relevant stats aren't published in any reputable peer-reviewed journal or provided by any government authority. But there can be no doubt that bears kill people in the USA. Frankly, the best source here seems to be Wikipedia. I generally tell my students that Wikipedia should not be used as a reference for the simple reason that it's not peer-reviewed. But in this instance, Wikipedia provides a list of fatalities with the names of the deceased backed up by links to their sources. And I have to say, it looks pretty legit. Assuming that it is, then bears have killed 47 people in the USA since 2000, almost 2 per year. Okay folks, well that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. The next episode will be another addition to my Super Predator series, and it might just be all about a particularly large and very dangerous kind of bear.